Alright, hello Professor, and welcome to my presentation. And real quick, I just want to say that I'm using the Screencastify app you recommended. Unfortunately, though, it only has a 5-minute limit, so I'm going to try to get through this as fast as I possibly can. Alright? So, when you first click on the link to my website, it brings you to the homepage. I designed the homepage to be semi-intuitive. It's the first thing people see, so it should be eye-catching, and it should help people navigate to the rest of the website and tell people what they're going to find on the website, and I did exactly that. I wrote in the first thing that they could find everything they could ever want to know about me and my presence online. I mentioned my state of enrollment for school and my major and minor, as well as my future goals and ideas. I gave you a little guide to navigating the website right here, just in case. I know there are some non-tech savvy people who could very easily miss this in the top right. And then I just gave a little thank you message at the end saying thanks for visiting my website. So you go further on, you get into the biography section. Here I try to make it a little bit more than just the average I went to school here, and I grew up here, and I had a normal life, because that's not really, it doesn't really tell your employer anything past your life story, and they don't really care about that, I'm sure. They really only care about the skills you've learned along the way. So, I be sure to mention that. I give a brief synopsis of myself, my hobbies, and who I am right in the first 2 sentences. Then right below, I give a little story on how I was always a very shy kid, and that ended up giving me while most people would look at being shy as, a detrimental personality trait, it ended up turning me into kind of a recluse. And as a result, I became very good at computers growing up. I just tinkered with them all the time. So I turned that original, con into a strength. Next up, we have my resume, which is pretty self-explanatory. You have all my work experience, my education, my skills, and the link to the website here, actually, just in case. I figure may as well include it, right? And I have my phone number and email blanked out. But yeah, just in case any potential employer wants to come here either through the resume or by looking me up and they find this website, they'll be able to find basically all that they would need to know about potentially hiring me if they'd want. And they can see any potential skills that may fill a role that they're looking to be filled. This is just an important thing to have if you're looking for work on your website. I also listed all of my extracurricular activities because obviously this is very important. Extracurricular activities, they're non-school related activities that can help build up a lot of skills that you can't find in the classroom, right? I mentioned that, and I used these examples. Specifically, 2 were sports related and 3 were volunteer related. The sports related one that I'd like to talk about the most is when I played basketball as a kid. It taught me, the importance of being a leader and working as a team, and same with the fantasy football league. While, sports in general doesn't seem like a massive, character builder, it actually is. Anyone who can play can attest to this, I'm sure. It teaches you very important team building and proper, leadership skills. And, it teaches you how to work in a group, especially if tensions are high. Below, we have my volunteer work. I used to volunteer at, not used to, I still do actually to this day, but coronavirus kind of put a hole in that. The PB&J parade, which is an event hosted by my local church where people gather to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for the homeless, and I make sure to do this monthly. Bi-monthly. I apologize. Here I used to volunteer at an animal shelter called Little Shelter. Excuse me. This is probably the most taxing work I've ever had to do. Multitasking, handling a bunch of small animals. It's a lot to handle, especially because these animals are untrained. That was something that I'll definitely look back and stick to. And the last one is a nature reserve that I hope volunteer for. I have to clean up trash and take care of the animals. It's not really easy work, but I love animals, so that's kind of what happens. Hopefully any potential employer will be able to get a lot of skills that I've gotten out of these events, and I tried to make them as recent as possible because, something I did when I was 10 years old probably wouldn't be too interesting to a potential future employer or anyone who's interested in my online brand. Next up, we have the academic highlights. This was an important part to me, actually, as I didn't really have too much. I flipped around my major and minor a lot, so I tried to do what I can with what I had. The first project that I went over was Dorm Advisor. I was a business major at one point, and as a business major, I had to create a business portfolio. It's an extremely long document going into detail about basically creating a business from start to finish, every single step, from the break-even graph all the way to the financial summary at the end. I had to do this. It was 25 pages long, and it was actually very very useful. I got a lot of tools out of it. Alright, sorry about that little cut. Turns out I can totally circumnavigate the 5-minute timer, funnily enough. So continuing onwards to my next academic highlight that I'd like to share with you guys. I originally had a class that I took called The Search for Life in the Universe, and this is a super off the beaten path course. It's not something that you would normally throw your work into the limelight to show off to a potential business employer. These are papers about the potential for life to exist on Mars throughout the years and the dangers of space debris. Not exactly something a potential investor would be looking for or something like that. The reason why I decided to have these here alongside the business plan was because they were definitely the two strongest papers that I had ever written in my entire life. Hands down, I think. Easily. I even got complimented from my teacher, which is nice. And the final thing that I decided to show off for my academic highlights was the presentation that I gave on the unique climate of China. I remember actually getting this not too long ago, but I had to give a 40-minute long oral presentation in front of the class about the unique climate of China. As a result, that was my first real public speaking ordeal that I had to experience, and as a result, it definitely made me more capable of speaking in front of a big crowd. I actually commonly refer back to this and think back to this even in real, constantly nowadays, as the assignment that basically helped me get over my fear of public speaking. And it also was a very nice, PowerPoint, if I do say so myself. So on to the last few things that I need to show off. I have all my social media tags and handles. We have my LinkedIn, which is the most important part, obviously. It's fairly barren, but I made it brand spanking new for this course, actually. So this is something that I'm going to use for the rest of my life, I'm assuming. Next up, we have the Twitter, which was, of course, made for this course. Not a big Twitter guy, but, I could, if it's going to come to the point where I need to enhance my brand, this is definitely what I'm going to use to help, too. I also have my Instagram links. These are optional in my YouTube links, just to show everyone as much as I could. Unfortunately, I had to rush through the first half of showing everything off because I thought I'd be pinned by the 5-minute timer, but that's not a big deal. Hopefully, I was able to relay everything properly, and thank you very much for coming to my presentation.